You spend your whole life putting everyone else first, until the moment you realize you don't even have a seat in your own family car. That moment for me, it came right after my husband's funeral, when my only son pulled onto a dirt road, looked me in the eye, and said, "This is where you get off." If you've ever felt like the people you loved the most forgot you existed, or worse, wished you just disappear, then stick around. What happened to me isn't just a story. It's a warning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because this is personal. My name is Elaine Travers. I'm 64 years old, a retired third-grade teacher from Columbus, Georgia, and apparently I am no longer needed. Not by my family, anyway. 3 weeks ago, I buried my husband, Russell. We were married 41 years. He was my high school sweetheart. Drove a red Mustang back then, full head of dark curls and a dimple that made me forgive things faster than I should have. Cancer took him fast. 6 months from diagnosis to hospice. He died in our living room, holding my hand, asking if the porch light was still on. It was, and I haven't turned it off since. We raised 2 kids together, Michael, our oldest, now 38, and Sarah, 33. Michael's a financial advisor in Atlanta. Sarah lives in Tampa and sells homes so big she jokes about never being able to afford one herself. Both married, both with kids. Both very busy. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't always hit like a truck. Sometimes it settles in quiet, like dust after a long day. And while I was still choking on that dust, life kept moving around me fast and sharp. Russell's funeral was beautiful, I guess. Closed casket, navy suit, flag folded tight. The church smelled like lilies and Old Spice. Everyone said the right things. He was such a good man. You two were the perfect couple. Call us if you need anything. I did need something. I needed to not be alone in that God-forsaken house. I needed to hear my children say, "Mom, you'll stay with us for a while. We've got you." But no one said that. Not during the service, not at the reception afterward in the fellowship hall, where I stood beside the potato salad like a ghost in a widow's cardigan. Michael gave a speech. It was nice. Talked about how Dad used to mow the lawn in boots and how he taught him how to budget with an envelope system. He didn't mention how I stayed up nights sewing patches onto his jeans because we couldn't afford new ones, or how I used to take extra sub-shifts just to keep the power on one winter. But I was used to that. I didn't need credit. I just wanted not to be forgotten. After everyone left, Michael offered to drive me back home. He said Sarah had to fly out early the next morning and wouldn't be able to stop by. "You know how it is," he added, like I hadn't changed both their diapers and sacrificed decades of sleep so they could know how it is. I climbed into the back seat of his Tahoe. He didn't even offer the front, and off we went. For the first 10 minutes, no one said a word. Just the soft hum of tires and the faint scent of stale French fries from the kids' booster seats. I stared out the window, trees blurring past, my black dress wrinkled at the knees. I noticed Michael had taken a different route, off the main highway, down through some country back roads. But I figured maybe he just wanted to avoid traffic. Then we turned onto a dirt road. No signage, just gravel and dust kicking up behind us like smoke. He pulled over. I thought maybe he needed to take a call or get something from the back. But he shifted into park, turned in his seat, and said quietly, "Mom, this is where you get off." At first I laughed, just a short, confused cuckle. I looked around. "Michael, what are you talking about? We're in the middle of nowhere." He didn't smile, didn't flinch, just looked down at his lap like he couldn't bear to meet my eyes. "I packed a few of your things. They're in the trunk. Clothes, your meds. and the photo albums. Packed? I blinked. Packed for what? There's a place not far from here. Assisted living. It's nice, clean, affordable. Sarah and I, we've been talking. We just think it's time. For you. For all of us. I swear to God, the world slowed down right then. Even the cicadas outside seemed to pause. I felt my throat close. You what? He finally looked at me. His eyes were glassy, but he didn't cry. Just looked down at his lap like he couldn't bear to meet my eyes. You're alone now, Mom. That house, it's too big. It's not safe. You forget to lock the doors, leave the stove on. We're worried. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap him. Not because he was wrong about the loneliness, but because he made it sound like it was my fault. Like being alone meant being a burden. I'm not senile, and I didn't ask for your help. He shook his head. It's not about that. We can't be driving down every weekend. The kids have school. Sarah's got showings. I've got meetings. Oh, I'm aware, Michael. My voice cracked. I'm very aware of how busy you are. We sat there for a long moment, engines ticking as it cooled. Then he stepped out, walked around, and opened the door for me like he was helping an old woman into a church pew. I didn't move. You're not serious, I said. My voice was barely above a whisper. He didn't answer, just reached into the trunk, pulled out a small navy suitcase, and set it gently on the gravel. My own son. The baby I used to rock through fevered nights. The boy who begged me to bring cupcakes to his class birthday because no one makes them like you, Mom. That boy just left me on the side of a dirt road like a lost dog someone doesn't have time for anymore. I finally got out, because what else could I do? I stood there, shaking, dust settling on my shoes, clutching that stupid little suitcase like it held any part of the life I'd built. Michael looked me in the eyes one last time, and then he drove away. No hug, no kiss on the cheek, just taillights disappearing into the trees. And that's how I ended up alone, in the middle of nowhere, heart pounding louder than the wind in the pines. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman they discarded, she wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. He thought leaving me out here was the end of my story. Turns out, it was only the beginning.
I didn't cry when Michael drove away. I just stood there, one hand on the suitcase handle, the other clutching my purse like it was the last piece of dignity I had left. There was a silence in those woods that felt rehearsed, like they'd picked this spot on purpose, far enough from town that I couldn't cause a scene, close enough to civilization that they could still sleep at night. I stood on that dirt road for maybe 10 minutes before a little white shuttle bus pulled up. A plump woman with a clipboard and a tired smile stepped out and said, "Mrs. Travers, I'm Karen. We spoke briefly on the phone, remember?" I didn't remember, but I nodded. Because what else do you do when your own children drop you like a sack of old winter coats? The place was called Willow Pines Senior Living. They tried to pretty it up. Soft lighting, potpourri bowls, warm-toned wallpaper. But underneath it all, it was what it was. A holding tank for people whose families had other priorities. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't the worst place. The staff were decent, the food was edible. They had bridge nights and Tuesday movie screenings with lukewarm popcorn and reruns of The King's Speech. But it didn't feel like life. It felt like waiting. My room was small, just one twin bed, a worn recliner, and a view of the parking lot. I unpacked the suitcase Michael had so thoughtfully packed. Half my clothes were missing. He'd remembered my toothbrush, but not my slippers. And the photo album? It only had pictures of him and Sarah. Not one of me. I called him that first night. No answer. I texted. Nothing. By the third day, I got a message from Sarah. "Hey, Mom. Hope you're settling in. Sorry I couldn't be there. Let us know if you need anything. XO." Need anything? I needed to feel like I mattered. I needed someone to look me in the eye and say, "You're not just background noise in your own life." Instead, I got bingo cards and beef stroganoff with a side of silence. I tried to adjust. I smiled at the nurses, I kept quiet, I crocheted scarves I didn't need. But inside, something was simmering. Not just sadness, something sharper, more pointed. Resentment. And then, 2 weeks in, everything changed. It was around 10 a.m. I was sitting out in the community garden pretending to read a mystery novel I'd already finished. That's when I overheard 2 of the staff talking near the azalea bushes. One of them, a young girl with braids and chipped blue nail polish, said, "That Willow woman, yeah, her kids put down a 6-month deposit and said if she doesn't, quote-unquote, adjust, they'll move her to that Medicaid facility over in Muskogee." The other one whistled. "That place is a nightmare. My aunt worked there, says they serve powdered eggs and don't even have working AC in half the rooms." I didn't say a word, just flipped my page like nothing had happened. But something had. Something clicked inside me. They weren't just abandoning me. They were outsourcing me. Paying for me like I was a monthly bill they hoped to cancel early. My own son, who I breastfed through 2 bouts of mastitis, who I stayed up with when he had night carers till he was 8, that same son was already planning my relocation like I was office furniture. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid there in the dark, thinking. Not about revenge, not yet, but about who I used to be. You see, before I was Mom or Mrs. Travers, I was Elaine with the sharp tongue and sharper instincts. I once walked out on a principal mid-meeting because he tried to blame a 10-year-old for being hungry in class. I once fought the school board to get new books for kids whose parents couldn't afford backpacks. I had been a fire once, and somewhere along the way, I let them convince me I was just smoke. No more. The next day, I asked Karen, sweet clipboard Karen, if I could use the community desktop in the media room. She smiled and said, "Of course, hon. Want me to set it up?" I waved her off. "I taught for 32 years, sweetheart. I've reset more passwords than you've had birthdays." The desktop was slow, but it worked. I logged into my old email, cleaned it up. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened up the admin dashboard for Russell's small business, Travers Utility Solutions. He'd started it when he retired from the military, just him and a buddy fixing busted generators and rewiring old farmhouses. It had grown over the years, not massive, but steady work. Michael had been helping him run it remotely the last couple of years, mostly just logging expenses and emailing invoices. He always said it wasn't worth much. Liar! I poked around the finances. It took me about 3 hours to trace the accounts. Turns out, Travers Utility Solutions had been quietly bought out 6 months ago, just before Russell's health took a turn. Bought by a shell company in Atlanta. Owned by Michael J. Travers. My own son
had convinced his dying father to sign over the company, sold it under a fake LLC, and pocketed the proceeds. I found the transfer doc, dated and notarized. $572,000. And he had the nerve to say he couldn't afford for me to stay at home? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I sat there, fingers trembling on the mouse, and whispered, "You greedy little coward." This wasn't just abandonment. This was robbery. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why Michael was in such a rush to handle my living situation, why Sarah never pushed back, why they packed my bags before I even had a chance to grieve. Because grieving people are quiet, distracted, easy to nudge into the background while you clean up what's left. Well, I was done being quiet. I logged out and wiped the history, and walked back to my room with a heart pounding louder than the cicadas outside. The next morning, I mailed a certified letter to my attorney in Columbus. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but he used to handle our taxes and estate stuff. Inside the envelope, a copy of the sale documents along with a handwritten note that said, "I think we have something to talk about. Elaine Travers." 2 days later, he called me. "Elaine," he said, low and cautious, "you're sitting down?" I smiled. I'm always sitting these days. Well, I looked into it. That sale was pushed through under power of attorney when your husband signed while under heavy medication. Legally shaky. And if your name was still on any of those business accounts, it was. I checked. Then your son's got a serious problem. I leaned back in the recliner, that old fire sparking back to life. I said, "Good," because I'm just getting started. They thought I was too weak to fight back, but they forgot. Widows have nothing left to lose.
You know what no one tells you? How slow revenge is. Not dramatic like in the movies. No slamming doors or courtroom shouts. No fireballs in the rearview mirror. No, it's cold, clinical, measured. And if you do it right, it's silent enough to make the ones who hurt you wonder when the hammer's gonna fall. After I sent that letter to my attorney, things moved fast behind the scenes. Turns out, Russell never removed my name from the original business documents. We co-owned Travers Utility Solutions since day one. And that meant Michael hadn't just sold off his inheritance, he'd committed fraud. The kind the IRS loves to dig into. The attorney, Mr. Denton, was discreet. He filed paperwork to freeze the account Michael dumped the sale money into. He contacted the buyers, 2 contractors out of Macon, and made it very clear the sale was likely invalid due to Russell's health at the time of signing. Then he subpoenaed the hospice records. You ever want to see a grown man panic? Freeze 6 figures of his money and send a court notice to his mortgage lender. Michael called me within days. First time I'd heard his voice since he left me on that dirt road. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, we need to talk. Please, I didn't mean for it to go like this. Sarah's freaking out. Just call me back, please." I didn't. Because there's nothing to say to a man who watched you bury your husband and thought that was the perfect moment to take everything you had left. But I wasn't interested in ruining his life. I didn't want him in jail. I didn't want his kids hungry. What I wanted was for him to feel what I felt that day on the gravel road. Powerless, discarded, humiliated. And he did. A week later, my lawyer offered a proposal when I wrote myself. Michael would return the full amount of the sale, minus legal fees and damages, to an account in my name. He'd also sign over a small property my husband and I had bought years ago, just a little lake cabin near Eufaula that he'd been planning to flip. In exchange, I'd drop all fraud claims and keep it out of court. Mr. Denton said it was harsh. I said it was merciful. Michael accepted. Of course he did. He had no idea what I was capable of until the walls started closing in. Sarah, to her credit, called me crying, said she had no idea, that she never looked at the papers, that she just trusted him. I believed her, sort of. But she still helped me pack that day, still looked away when the car door closed. Forgiveness is funny. I don't know if I found it, but I did find something else. Distance. A month later, I left Willow Pines. Karen was surprised, but not hurt. "You're one of the good ones," she said, as she hugged me. "Most people come here to settle. You came here to reboot." I smiled. I came here to remember who the hell I am. The day I moved out, I wore a linen blouse I hadn't touched since my 50th birthday. Blue with little embroidered flowers. Made me feel like someone worth looking at again. I moved into the lake cabin. At first, it was just temporary, a place to catch my breath. But you'd be amazed what peace feels like when the only sound is frogs on the water and the hum of crickets at night. I painted the porch, planted tomatoes, adopted a stray cat who refuses to be tamed but still sleeps by my door. I made a home. And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't waiting on a phone call to feel loved. Funny thing is, once I stopped chasing their attention, Sarah started calling more. Just small things at first. Pictures of the kids. Thought you'd like this song. Michael didn't call. Not for a while. Until 2 weeks ago. I was watering my tomatoes when my phone buzzed. His name on the screen again. I hesitated. But this time, I answered. "Mom," he said, I don't even know how to start." I let the silence fill the line. "I was scared," he said finally. "When Dad died, I didn't know how to be a man without him telling me what to do. And when I saw the money, I thought, this is how I take care of everything. I didn't realize I was taking it from you." I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I asked him something I never thought I would. "Did you really think I was safer in that place?" He was quiet. "I think," he said slowly, "I think I thought it would be easier if you weren't around, because seeing you reminded me of everything I didn't want to feel." And there it was, the real truth. I didn't cry. I just nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "I'm not coming back. Not to Sunday dinners, not to holidays. Not yet." He exhaled. "Thank you." We hung up. And I stood in the sun, dirt in my nails, and felt nothing but air in my lungs. No pain, no fury. Just weightlessness. These days, I live slow. I read paperbacks from the swap shelf at the Dollar General. I go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. I'm teaching a young couple down the road how to can peaches. And sometimes I still miss Russell. I talk to him on the porch when the sun sets. I tell him about the cat, about the tomatoes, about the quiet vengeance of survival. Because that's the thing no one teaches you. The best revenge isn't a scream. It's silence. It's standing in the ruins they left you in and building something beautiful. Thanks for listening. If you're still here, maybe this story hit something in you too. Maybe you've been left on your own kind of dirt road.
just remember, you're not a burden. You're not disposable. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is keep standing. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't yelling or fighting. It's becoming someone they never imagined you could be. If you've ever faced betrayal, abandonment, or fought to reclaim your worth, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder. You're not done yet. You're just getting started.